So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our year-end wrap-up for the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium. Today, we're going to be going a bit of a review of what we've done over the year, as well as some new things that are happening here at the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium. And then at the end, we're going to leave it up for open discussion. So if you have any questions during our presentation, please feel free to either use the raised hand function under reactions or put it into the chat, and we'll be able to address any questions that you might have during our presentation today. And of course, we want your full input when we get to the discussion at the end. So next slide, please. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we've done in terms of membership and how our membership has grown over a period of time, as well as some of the outreach that we've done throughout the year. Barry, our treasurer, is going to give a financial overview where they're going to go into the executive council election results, and you'll see who will be the representatives for NASCIC going into 2023. Ian's going to give us an update on our various types of engagement projects that are going on. We'll go back to Barry talking about our SCI research advocacy course and the latest on that, as well as some of the analytics that we've seen from scitrials.org. And then at the end, we're going to give you a little bit of a highlight of what will be our activities will be going into 2023. And also leave it up for open discussion because we want to get some of your feedback as well. So next slide, please. So the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium, we officially started in 2018. And we're happy to say that this year we actually surpassed 400 members. So we are 400 members now and growing. We have representation across most of Canada and most of the United States. We are still looking for participants within Mexico. So if anyone in the audience is familiar with any types of organizations or people living with spinal cord injury in Mexico, we'd love to have their input. We also have a few representations in the Caribbean, and of course in Curacao and Costa Rica. But again, that's another area of growth that we will be looking at going forward. But I think it was a great milestone for us to meet of surpassing 400 members in such a short period of time. Next slide, please. So we did a lot of outreach this past year. We went to quite a few conferences. And this year we did the gamut of various spinal cord injury conferences. And as you can see, most of them are professional organizations like the American Spinal Injury Association or the Academy of Spinal Cord Injury Professionals. But we also did some presentations at representation for those living with spinal cord injury at the PVA Summit, at the Reeves Summit, as well as the Unite to Fight Paralysis Symposium in September. We have just did one of our last presentations of the year earlier this week, and next week we'll round out our presentations to scope. And we did this as part of our outreach effort to help to raise awareness amongst the professional communities as well as other communities within the spinal cord injury representation about what the consortium is doing and some of the outreach that we've done. Next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Barry for our financial overview. Barry?
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. It's great to see some new faces. Really exciting to see that. And as an overview, I thought I'd maybe just take us back a step. Just historically, for those that might not know that, although NASCIC has been around as a formal organization since 2018, we actually had the assistance of a former 501c3 organization called the American Spinal Research Organization that is basically now doing business as the North American SCI Consortium. So these financials are more or less the financials of that is ASRO. So when we do our final accounting, we changed our year end this year so that our year end is now December 31st. And we will go forward that way. And because frankly, we're making more money. We're now doing a formal audit as opposed to a reporting letter because we're over that $250,000 mark, which in many jurisdictions, they require a formal audit. So that all said, these are projected and not actuals. They're a combined of actuals and projected income because it is November when I put this together. And frankly, we still have the month of December coming in, but this is more or less where we'll land. And you'll see finals in the new year once it's audited. But
And these people see me.
hello?
Oh, what happened?
Sorry, if everyone can just mute, that would be great. Thank you.
That's because, okay, can you put it up? Thank you. I lifted it up earlier. I don't know what happened.
Hey, Jess, if you've got control of the Zoom, you should be able to mute anybody whose microphone's on.
Okay, so moving forward, just an overview. We had a grandfather event that came in with the former ASRO and now with NASCIC, where just under $75,000 we received in the 2022 year towards our endeavors as a revenue generator. Our fee for service has been quite significant, and this we'll hear more about expansion of those services later on from Jen. And we've been successful with grants, with mainly $100,000 being that from Nielsen Foundation, which went towards the SCI Research Advocacy course. And then with that, we've, as part of our plan to sustainability, we've raised at least $35,000 and counting, hopefully a bit more before the end of the year, towards sponsorship of our course as well. So that brings us to a total income of $272,572.59. You'll see on the expenses side, administration really is part of the general administration cost that comes over with running the organization. And then we have bank service charges and Stripe fees. The Stripe fees, just so you know, goes towards peer-to-peer fundraising that you see with the Johnson & Johnson event. And then our basic expense has gone into the course and being built and the consultants that we have working on that. And that brings us to, total expenses really of $263,608 with a surplus this year of just under $9,000, which will more or less what we'll land on come December 31st. So that's really a general projected and quasi-actual summation of our finances. And I'd be glad to take any questions or queries about that now. Okay. Well, the one thing I do want to add to this is that we made a very conscious effort, especially in honor of our principal members, that we do not compete is where we can with those funders that are funding our other organizations. We're really secondary when it comes to funding. So for example, we all know there's a relationship with Onward, but that's not the relationship that we have. And we honor those type of relationships, making it very clear when NASCIC was created that we'll never be a competitor with our principal organizations and the funds that they raise. Very, very conscious of that. So that's how we've gone forward. This is just in recognition of some of the financial support that we've received so far. We're, again, very thankful to these organizations, and there are many pokers in the fire right now moving forward on how we might want to gain more support through other organizations. So that's your financial update.
I'm on mute and I have such a bad habit of talking into a muted microphone. Sorry about that, guys. So we're going to go into our election results for our executive council. As many of you may know, is that we have at least one member of our executive council roll off. So we have staggering 3-year terms on our executive council members. And this year, Taryn Clark is rotating off of our executive council. She's served graciously for us for 3 years, and we appreciate all the work and input that she's given to us. And our new member is Jared Kerr. He has been serving on our project review committee for several years now, and he will be joining the executive council in 2023. and will be serving for 3 years through 2026. So we want to welcome aboard Jared, and we want to thank Taryn for all her dedication to the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium over the last several years. Next slide. So this is what will be your executive council going into 2023. Of course, we have our 3 officers, as well as Jose Hernandez will continue to serve. Jake Beckstrom from U2FP will serve as well. Kim Anderson, as our past president, will also remain on the executive council for another year. And Jared Kerr will be our new member. So those are your representation. Please feel free to reach out to any of them. Our contact information is available through our website, and our ears are open. We always want to hear from our members. Next slide, please. We also want to give recognition to our outreach committee. They have been dedicating and a lot of activities to help move along the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium. And our members are Jen Wolf, Rebecca Torres, Lehigh Zuniga, Jacques Como, as well as Taryn Clark. And here are some of the activities that they've done over the last year. Is really they are responsible for both our internal and external communications. They've been promoting membership throughout our SCI community, and also have helped to create and approve any outreach content and distribution that we have to really be a sounding board for us, as well as ensuring that members are engaged and that we're benefiting from joining NASCIC and what specifically those benefits are. And in fact, we've taken a lot of their input to heart. So throughout the year, we have had some outreach through our SCI Connections quarterly meetings. This past year, we had a personal care assistant program that's being developed out of Kessler. That was in Q1. In Q2, we hosted a session on the development of peer health coaches. And then Q3, we hosted a session on the IKT principles and meaningful engagement. All of those recordings are available on our website. We also hosted a special webinar for the CDMRP Spinal Cord Injury Research Program, some tips and tricks for our principal members on how to apply for those grants that are specifically for spinal cord injury. We took to heart some of the input from our outreach committee about hosting roundtables and really getting some feedback from our principal members. So we took that to heart in this past year. In July and August, we hosted several principal member roundtable discussions to get some input from our principal members, as well as a second round of those in November. And again, our principal members are nonprofit organizations that directly represent people living with spinal cord injury. I also want to recognize Barry for leading the outreach committee, and for his efforts for keeping this organization and this committee together, and really giving a lot of feedback from them. So thank you, Barry. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ian. He's going to give you an update on the projects that we've been doing here at NASCIC. Ian?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. Jess, if you can go ahead. Yep, perfect. So just to reiterate a little bit and remind everyone, projects really are the core of NASCIC and how we involve individuals with lived experience into research. So it consists of up to 10 members. Right now, we only have 9 members on the PRC. We meet monthly, and we have developed some evaluation and tracking metrics that we'll go through a little bit later of how well we're doing with these projects. And we review both internal and external projects from industry and academia, as well as projects that are done, internally within NASCIC. And we mainly engage by partnering with engagement, whether that's a letter of support, research recruitment, or project collaboration, where we actually work with the researchers to really form what their engagement is. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, we have both external and internal projects. A lot of these engagements can kind of fall into one of 5 buckets, whether that's an advisory board, a focus group, community surveys, advocacy, or clinical trial speaking, or clinical trial recruitment, sorry. However, that's not necessarily something that, you know, can hold everything, but I would like to highlight 2 main projects right now, just that have been really exciting. If we can go to the next slide. One of our projects that was, she's originally proposed, I believe in 2019, maybe earlier, recently was published, and that's Anita Kaiser, who is actually a member of our PRC. And this was a scoping review of the characteristics of activity-based therapy interventions for individuals living with spinal cord injury or disease. And that's great, as we all know that activity-based therapy is really important, but it's challenging to get funding for, and hopefully work like this can help understand some of the reimbursement models for that. If we go to the next slide, another exciting project that was done this year was through Thomas Jefferson University, and this was actually presented at the ISCOS annual meeting early summer, late spring. And it was really all about what we do with projects where you're engaging stakeholders as advisors, and this is to design a calibration study for the Spinal Cord Injury Movement Index. This involved 4 direct advisory board members, and they are actually in the process of publishing a paper right now where all 4 of those advisory members are going to be authors on the paper, which is really exciting. Next slide, we can go through a little bit of our metrics within the project review committee. Like I mentioned earlier, these were developed to kind of track where we are as a group and make sure that we are maintaining. These are up to date as of the end of the 3rd quarter of this year. We've seen a little bit of a decrease in the amount of projects that have been submitted to us and accepted, but we have been able to shorten the length of time that we can respond to these projects, as well as keeping up with the projects that are coming in so we can have a quick turnaround. Next slide is all about our project engagement database. So this is where we find the members for our advisory boards and focus groups. It has stayed relatively static, but since this last quarter, because of all the outreach that we have done at conferences, especially this fall, I know there's been a little bit of an uptick that isn't reflected in these numbers. But we have about 41% of individuals that are in the project engagement database that are involved. And the bottom slide there, it kind of cut off the text, but it's the number of people that are involved in multiple projects, which is 15, which is really exciting that we are having people that are really engaged and want to be involved in a lot of projects. Next slide, so I don't take up too much of the conversation here. I did want to recognize Claudia Garofalo for her time that she has served on the PRC. I think she's been on almost since the inception of the PRC, if not really shortly after. But we are looking for new members that are joining the PRC. We have a few that are being reviewed right now. But if you are interested in joining the PRC, feel free to email me directly. And also that project engagement database, there's a sign up form on our website.
Thanks, Ian. This is sort of one of the parts of the conversation where we're doing the year in review, where we can say that a heck of a lot of time and energy has gone into this project, and it's called the Spinal Cord Injury Research Advocacy course. And for some of you that might be new to the conversation, I thought I'd give you some background on this. This really follows the beginning of the evolution of NASCIC as an organization. And one of the first opportunities we had to sort of come out on our own was when we were invited to the NIH meeting in 2019, which was entitled SCI. It was called 2020, A Decade of Disruption, really looking at the next 10 years of research funding for NIH and SCI. And what we found was, before we went into the meetings and we had the opportunity to speak on behalf of the community, we gauged our community and we reached out through a survey, and we had a heck of a response in 36 days, up to I think 1,800 respondents, and mainly people with in the community with spinal cord injury, all coming back with some common themes. Number one, they felt that the research community, there was a disconnect, and that they didn't have the voice that they wanted to have and input on the community, and particularly in expressing what they felt was the maybe mismatching of priorities. And that, as many of you do know, and going back to the original Anderson paper of 2004, where things like mobility and walking, so to speak, which is the kind of the catchphrase we'd like to use out there, is really lower down the priority scale compared to bowel, bladder pain, and even sexual function. So with that all said, we shared this with the community, and we shared this back at our representations at this meeting. And then coming out of the meeting, with the feedback we got, we realized that, and I like to quote our president and Jen in saying, this is where we decide to plant our flag, at least in terms of what NASCIC's priority is going forward. And it was really in designing some type of resource where we can help build the capacity of people with lived experience to better partake in spinal cord research. And when I say research, by the way, I'm not just talking about neuroscience. I'm talking about all aspects of research, because when you get into certain research opportunities, and some of them reflect in the projects that Ian just spoke of, they really, once the research is completed and documented, could turn into best practices. So which also could turn into better technology to helping people with their daily living, and obviously looking at longer term solutions, which could eventually lead to restorative function. So all of these things, we realized that without our involvement and us sitting at the table and being involved in the research process, that our research just isn't as good, but it can be better with us involved. And by the way, wasn't just, I hate to say it, but it wasn't just a novel idea. This whole concept has been repeated over and over again in other indications and other conditions. So our friends at Parkinson's, our friends at MS, our friends at ALS, and probably as coming out of the AIDS movement, and particularly breast cancer survivors, they showed us that this is what you need to do if you want to have a better seat at the table. So we went out, we studied these other programs, and we embarked on this SCI research advocacy course. We are very fortunate, and I spoke earlier of funding, that the Nielsen Foundation stepped up and decided to back this program and believed in it. But more importantly, I have to say that we brought together some incredible people. You know, we've been talking about the various groups that have been involved. The working group that we have designed and put together have been awesome. They have done nothing but teach me something every day. And I'm 35 years injured. And that's the best part of it, is I go into these meetings with an agenda that gets sometimes tossed out the window, because some of these people and their input have such great knowledge and great insight on what we could do better and how we can improve, and the topics that we need to discuss. So if you can go to the next slide, Jess, this is just an example, maybe blow it up a bit if you could. There are 12 modules that are being built. And this is the progress of where we are right now. It wasn't a linear attack. It was really looking at different aspects and different parts of the modules and how we can get them done quicker. I have to admit, we are over budgeted and over time, and that is probably normally not a good thing, but I can say it happened because we were very clear that what we did was going to be for the community, by the community, and that the input that we've received on drafts and the beta testing input we received made us at some point go back and do some things differently and redraft the content that we created. That said, it only makes for a better product once it's released. We're still on a somewhat I guess, a newer target of the first quarter of 2023 and working very hard on it. If you look at the topics there and you look at the white space, those are going to be filled in pretty quickly. In fact, we are confident that by the end of December, we should see another few more modules completed. But really what it takes is, and just explain to you what the process is that we have a working group that decided on a general outline of the topics. Now, that said, that when we do these topics, some people may or may not disagree on how we categorize things, but I can guarantee you this, that everything, including the kitchen sink on SCI and research advocacy, is in this program. So whether we hit the nail on the head and completely got the right topic and the right content piece matched to what people are traditionally thinking of, that's for debate, but the reality is it's all in there. Every module requires somebody to complete a quiz at the end of the module. And once they've completed the module, they go on to the next one, and then the course will be completed. Once they've completed the course, the program is going to be such that they'll receive a certificate of completion. And really that just shows that they've gone through the trouble of going through the whole course. Then the idea is to create graduates that would be better and more comfortable at advocating for research, regardless of the setting. And you saw the project, some of the sample projects that Ian displayed earlier. That's an area where they would be involved in. Some would be involved in literally sitting down and acting as advisors to the private industry and how to basically look at and create and tweak a clinical study. Some might be involved in concept stage, very early stages. What we do know right now is that funders are slowly, more and more, mandating that a person with lived experience has to be identified as part of their grant application. And we're not just talking a token that we've checked a box off, but somebody that has a meaningful role. And that's what this is all about, creating meaningful engagement, that they can actually share their lived experience with those that are trying to help and conduct research and potentially create best practices, if not devices and or pharmaceutical solutions to helping us. But you can't do that without our voice being at the table. And frankly, from the beginning, not just in the third stage or late stages of this thing, it has to be at the very beginning. So that is why this course is so important. And that is why this course has received so much support from our community. And I just to go back, so this working group puts together this outline. We have subcommittees that put together a more detailed outline that goes back to the working group for each module. Then a script is put together that is brought out. And in some cases, not everyone, we created what we call a storyboard, which is like a hybrid between slides and voiceovers that put together what the module will look like for people to review, really from a content point of view. We've reached out to many people even outside the group for their input. People are also involved in providing testimonials and Zoom interviews directly embedded in the program. And then after that's all said and done, we bring it back for production. And then that is where it comes together under a program. They call it an LSM, but this basically, it's a white label program we call LearnDash that we use that will house and operate the program. We've also put out a pre-registration in advance for those people who have expressed interest and want to be involved in the course and taking the course. And we can say successfully to date that we have now had over 82 people pre-register. And then when you add that to our PED, that database of individuals who already said they're interested in taking the course, we have at least 175 people, individuals in the wings ready to take this course. So it's going to come out like gangbusters, bastards. I can't say that, can I? Gangbusters when we get going. So we are very excited about that. So going into 2023, with the course being built, we're then faced with the next piece is dissemination. We want to make sure that we don't build the best thing ever that nobody ever sees. So we're very fortunate right now that we've had a grant by the PVA, Paralyzed Veterans of America, that has said, we'd like you to focus on disseminating this project to our members themselves. And frankly, the dissemination strategy that we're building together with them can also be duplicated in terms of our broader community and principal members, as you see. So for example, we will have influencers, people who will take the course that have a voice in the community to speak about the course. I can say everybody that's been involved and had a chance to practically look at the course have all come off, and I say this 100% unanimously have come back speaking positive of what we're doing. And I don't say that modestly. It's really a subject of great work of a great community and people that are working very hard in the back to make this thing happen. So you can see where we're going after. So we're really looking at how we can focus in for the veteran community, but also looking at abroad model systems, for example, both Canada, the US, and the various chapter networks of PVA and United Spinal and SCI Canada, and looking at theirs, and as well as their leadership, who are all been on board in supporting the project. So stay tuned for that. And you saw at the beginning all those conferences that we've been attending. I guess we're really looking at duplicating that again, except this time we're either presenting our project as completed, but more importantly, making sure that everybody knows about it and has a chance to take it. And that's where we're going with the course. But it wouldn't have been possible at all without our contributing partners and grants found in the next slide, who have really helped make this piece happen. And they're continuing to grow. I have to say, when I get the chance to speak to a decision maker on that front, I've had the opportunity. It's not a hard sell if their funds were in the budget. So it's really a great opportunity for them to put themselves and associate themselves with a great product. And at the same time, really helping gain and build capacity in our community. So on to the next slide. Part of what we're doing in terms of engagement is in the research side is we are one of the co-partners of SCItrials.org here in North America. And it is a database that, if those of you who don't know about it, it's a chance for people to identify research clinical studies anywhere in the world that's related to SCI. It's also a recruitment tool for those partners that are trying to recruit people for these studies to really ask people if they want to be involved. People can create their own profile on SCItrials.org and put that out. Also, the trials themselves are put in, really listed, and be able to read in lay terms so people better understand the lay language. And that's what we do with the course, which supports this as well, is that any discussion of research is in lay terms so that people can just understand it in plain language and not be intimidated by the research talk or neuroscience speak that most of us don't really understand without a lot of work. And as you can see, this is an example of the analytics of the last 2 years of how the program has done. You can see in the orange, it came out of the gate pretty high, and it's somewhat flatlined a little bit. And then with more of our involvement in 2022, we've kept it going, and there's been a slight increase in the last quarter, really an increase, but it's sort of died down really more recently. We believe that with the expansion of and the implementation of our SCI research advocacy course, that when we tie in SCI trials together with it, that we can also increase the activity in that way. Now, for those of you that don't know, clinicaltrials.gov is really the anchor and the basic database that provides SCI trials with what's happening. But as many of you might have tried to maneuver and navigate through clinicaltrials.gov and found it's very difficult, this is a much easier source to better understand all things clinical studies in SCI trials that are listed, are done throughout the world. There's a GPS element as well. And so maybe I can ask Jess, if you could, in the chat section, just list how people can get involved and register or go to SCItrials.org. But it's pretty straightforward right there. There is on our website, we actually have a video that shows you how to navigate it as well. It's very simple. So we try to make things easy as much as we can, to any way we can have people be part of the research endeavors and being part of that. That's really our main focus right now, at least for this year, to get us really looking at how we can be better partners in the whole research setting.
Excellent. Thanks for that overview, Barry, for the course. And yes, as you mentioned, if you are interested in taking the course, the pre-registration is open on our website. You're more than welcome to pre-register, and you'll get a notice once the course is open. And again, that course will be available online and for free. So there's no cost associated with taking the research advocacy course. So today we looked at a lot of the activities that we've done throughout 2022. It's been a busy year for us, and a lot of activity happening. And I just want to take a second of reflection of all of those activities going on. And, we thanked our executive council, we thanked our outreach committee and our PRC. But I also want to thank a person in the background that really helps to make our engine move, which is Jessica. So thank you, Jessica, for all the support that you provide to the NASCIC and really helping to be the backbone of our organization to make things happen. So big applause to Jessica for all the work that she's done throughout the year. So you've heard a lot today about research, and as Barry had mentioned, we had to put our stake in the ground somewhere when we started the North American Spinal Cord Injury Consortium. And our mission is really to have unified achievements in research, care, cure, and policy related to spinal cord injury. So you see that a lot of our initial activities were focused around research, and we want to also look at some of the other aspects of spinal cord injury and where are there gaps that need to be filled. How do we communicate resources across our community, and also having some unified achievements. So you will see some of that coming into 2023 as we've done a lot of efforts in terms of research, but we also don't want to ignore the other parts of our mission of care, cure, and policy that go along. And as with policy, we have a lot of principal members that are very involved in policy making in various countries. So it's not us actually doing the policy work, it's making sure that what is going on across the board is that we're making sure that everyone's communicating amongst each other. So looking at 2023, we kind of call this our umbrella or our suite of services. So as Ian had mentioned, projects were really kind of the backbone of NASCIC, and that's where we started. So, and we will continue to do that, our project partnerships or our project collaborations that happen and that are continuing to happen. So if you have a project where you want to, work with people with lived experience, please get a hold of Ian, but we will continue that project effort. Barry mentioned SCItrials.org and just put it in the chat. That was another one of our early internal projects and working with the community in terms of making it easier to find clinical trials related to spinal cord injury, how those are vetted to make sure that they're legitimate trials, as well as providing some basic lay language, not scientific language, around those clinical trials and whether or not that you might meet the inclusion-exclusion criteria. Barry also mentioned, talked about the SCI Research Advocacy course, and we will be going into 2023. 2022 was dedicated to the creation of the course and some fundraising around it for both seed funding and for sustainability. And we will see more activity in this space in 2023. And in 2023, we'll also be launching our engagement services, and I'll go into that a little bit more. In 2022, we did a soft launch, so we had a couple of clients, but we're going to look at expanding that into 2023. So next slide, Jess. Perfect. So what can you expect in 2023? So as I mentioned, and Barry mentioned as well, is that we'll be launching and disseminating the SCI Research Advocacy course. And that will be a lot of our efforts going into 2023. As Barry had said, is, it's great that we can build a tool, but if people are not aware of it and aren't taking it, we really are not making that impact. So we're going to be dedicating efforts into launching and dissemination of that course and having as many people that are interested in taking it to take it and get through the course, and then helping with matchmaking as that goes forward. We'll also be doing a full launch of our engagement services. So the question is, what is engagement services? So when we take on projects as project collaborations that Ian's been managing over the past year, those projects are typically people that come to us that already know or already have a framework for engagement, whether it's in a research project or whether it's product development or whether it's some other advocacy that might be going on. They already have kind of a structure around that of how they want to recruit people with lived experience. But we've also found that we get a lot of requests around people that come to us that say they want to have an engagement program, but they just don't know where to start. So that's where the engagement services will come in. So when we think about project collaboration, it's really execution of those projects. When we think about engagement services, it's the design of those engagement projects, and how will the engagement of people with lived experience and those that are either doing research or product development or services development, how that engagement might best fit into where they are in the development of whatever they might be doing. So again, we did a soft launch in 2022, and that was reflective on some of our financials. In 2023, we will do a full launch of those services. And again, this is a fee for service. So this is again another part of hiring people that have been involved in engagement and or who have completed the course, and those that want to help with the design of engagement programs. So we again, you'll see more about this in 2023. Also, two other areas that we're embarking on in 2023 is doing some further outreach. So we talked about the outreach committee, and we talked about how we've done various types of webinars, but we also took to heart from the outreach committee about having some principal member roundtables. And we held those principal member roundtables in July and August of this year. We had a second round of those in November. And in 2023, we are now going to be embarking on what's the collaboration framework that we need to have around our principal members to make sure that we're all collaborating and moving forward and identifying where the gaps are in our community and where the resources already exist and how we can share those types of resources, or if there's a gap where we need to develop some resource for our community. So you will see more of that collaborative framework going forward into 2023. And finally, the last kind of quadrant here that we will be working on is our community needs assessment. So back in 2019, we did our first needs assessment for the SCI community. So we went out to you all and said, what are your greatest challenges? What are the greatest obstacles that you have in your daily lives? So we can help communicate that back to both the research community, the industry, and our other partners, service partners, to say this is what our community is saying. So we want to embark on that needs assessment every few years. And because it will be just about 4 years since we've done that, we want to do that again in 2023. And this is a matter of us getting a gauge on the community to make sure that we're staying on top of the needs of people living with spinal cord injury. So again, see that effort coming in 2023. We also have a new project that we will be taking on late in the fall of this year, and we'll really be getting into it much more in 2023, is NASCIC has partnered with SCOPE. That's the Spinal Cord Outcomes Performance Endeavor. It's a kind of a committee of the American Spinal Injury Association. And we've partnered with them to take on what's called a PFDD and a PPI initiative. And that stands for patient-focused drug development and patient preference initiatives. Those are terms from the FDA in the US. So those are efforts within our regulatory agencies that want to really understand the preferences of people with lived experience, to understand what types of outcomes that the FDA and the regulators should be taking into account when they look towards approving new therapies, drugs, devices, biologics. So we will be putting together a working group with that. And this project will be about a 2 to 3 year project going forward. So again, see more on that, as well as building a working group similar to what Barry has built for the advocacy course. So that is where you will see us going in 2023. So what I'd like to do now is just open it up for questions in our audience. See if anyone has questions about what's been presented today, and then we can go into the discussion. Any questions or comments?
I guess I have a comment. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Hi. My name is George McIntyre. I'm in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. And you may have heard about a new hotel called the Schoolhouse Hotel. It was our high school here in town. A gentleman named Charlie Hammerman, who's the CEO of the Disability Opportunity Fund, ended up in our town and bought half the town and bought the school and remodeled the school. All 30 rooms are handicap accessible, and he's billing it, and I kind of agree, as the most ADA compliant hotel in the world. I plan on running for mayor here and registering next year. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm a C6 injury, Asia D, and pretty active. I'm working at trying to get our town to be a little bit more aware of the needs of all handicapped people, and to make our town very, very accessible. And the last comment I wanted to make is just real quick about research. I'm one of the people that participated in the Renetex AXA 204 trial, which the numbers kind of got cut down by the COVID. So I don't think they really had enough people to participate in the trial. And after it was all over with, we got spinal taps for 2 years. I found out I was one of the people that got the placebo. And I'm not upset about it. I'm a little disappointed. I'm 67 years old now. I got in under age 65. So I qualified to participate. And now, even though I went through that trial, I don't know that I'm going to qualify to get in any more trials. I kind of put my eggs in their basket. I really do believe that they have a viable solution and cure and treatment for the majority of us. I really believe it's there. The problem is that the way the ADA regulates all these things, it's almost a little too cautious. I mean, I'm in a chair. Everybody in a chair wants to be out of a chair. So let's give us the drug and include everybody, and let's see what happens. You've had enough placebos now. So I want to see let's let a little bit more risk applied to a situation that we're all living with, if you follow what I'm saying.
I do, yeah, and thank you for sharing your story, and we'll look for you running for mayor, that's for sure. But part of the PFDD and the PPI initiative that we're doing in partnership with Scope is to help our regulators understand the risk versus benefit that is preferred within our community. So we'll be embarking on one that initially as kind of pre-development stage preferences, but as we go down that road, we'll be able to get into specific areas in terms of understanding risk versus benefit within our community. And that is really what you're alluding to, is helping our regulators understand what people in our community, what risk are they willing to take for what level of benefit. So thank you for sharing your story. And I think that that project will help us to communicate the preferences within our community. So please stay tuned. But thank you for sharing your story. Those are going to be stories we'll want to embark on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions, comments? Well, I want to open this up. I want to open this up for discussion, but I see that there's a couple of comments here. Oh, yes, I did have a typo on one of my slides, so thank you. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. And we'll work to correct that. Thanks. One of the things I want to leave in the last few minutes that we have together is what we've learned and the takeaways from our principal member roundtables. So just a quick summary, what we did is we got a lot of our principal member representatives together, and what we wanted to understand is how do people exchange information and where are some of the gaps within our community. And here's kind of a high level summary of what we took away from those discussions is one is that there's a very high value of peer support within our community. It's incredibly important. We also have found that past efforts to try to be the only source of information for everything SCI had failed in the past. So we need to be very cognizant as we look going forward, what are means that we can help to exchange information within our community. We also found that those that are not connected to a hub or a model center within spinal cord injury are information challenged. So, and we found this a lot as people who are newly injured, they feel like they're going through a fire hose of information. But even for those that have been injured for a long period of time with chronic injuries, you know, sometimes Dr. Google doesn't always find the answer for us, or, you know, how to find the right resources that we're looking for. We also learned that trusted sources equals trusted information. That we know from the age that we're living in today is that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and so where you get your information from, it needs to be a trusted source. And we also found that just getting information is not always the best means of absorbing it. Is that we also need some guidance or a means of navigating our system. So I wanted to bring this up to the audience and ask you this: is there anything that we're missing? And as we're looking forward going into 2023, anything else that you would like to see us embark on?
One of the things that I would like to see more looking at is, I want to call it the outlaw or the underground community. For example, wheelchair driver for people that hack on power chairs and do things that the manufacturers are absolutely horrified by, but give us chairs that actually do what we want instead of what some strange OT wants. I'm using a stuff called microsyn in my bladder, where I'm actually using an external use only veterinary product, installing 30 cc's into my bladder every morning. It helps keep the UTIs at bay. And I picked that up off of CareCure as something that a lot of people are using. And just more stuff that's not necessarily coming from official sources.
Could you elaborate on official sources for us?
Not throwing stones, but for instance, a lot of times I feel like United Spinal is more interested in supporting the wheelchair manufacturers than they are in supporting the people that are in the chairs. So you go to someplace like wheelchairdriver.com and you find, gee, this is how you fix the chair without having to go through one of the major service companies and wait for months, and doing things like converting to lithium iron phosphate batteries to get 3 times the power and half the weight. And so on down the line of things that you can do that are very much, that, what I would say is, that we void the warranties, but we get stuff that does what we want, not necessarily what the manufacturer wants to give us, or Medicare or whatever.
Understood. Yeah. So really looking at more lived experience involved in the product development of power chairs going forward, but also, how they're serviced today.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments out there? Anything else that you would like to see in 2023?
I'll jump in here, Jen, and just talk about, kind of addressing a little bit about what Art was saying about using veterinary medicine in UTI management. I think, sorry, by the way, John Trineski, I work at the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute in Vancouver here, and really focus on trying to get people with lived experience, like all of us, involved in research. And I think first and foremost, I applaud everything NASCIC's done. I think it's a wonderful organization, and the advocacy course is just going to build up the skill set so that more and more people living with spinal cord injury can be partners in research and have those skills. But I think what I'd like to see is a move beyond just actually asking people with spinal cord injury what matters to them and their priorities. And don't get me wrong, Jen, I think the work you're doing with Scope sounds absolutely fantastic. But at some point in the future, I think we need to start asking questions that are coming from the community, not just what their priorities are and having questions be defined by researchers, but have questions that come from researchers, like, as you said, the hypochloric acid, which you're probably using as your bladder fluid flush. I know lots of people with spinal cord injury use that. Has anybody done any research on it? No. Do people with spinal cord injury want to know if it works? Hell yeah. Do they want to know if it's safe? Absolutely. So why aren't questions coming from the community that researchers are answering alongside of us that we're generating? That's where I'd like to see us start moving towards in the future. And I know maybe the ecosystem isn't quite ready for it yet, but that's certainly an area I'm going to work on, and I'm hopeful that NASCIC's going to be a partner with us on that as well.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Yeah, good point. Any other last questions, comments, and what you've learned today, or any gaps that you see? Excellent. Well, we're bumping up against the hour. I want to thank you all for attending. This session has been recorded, so if you know of anybody that would like to see it or was not able to attend, it will be posted on our website along with our other SCI Connection quarterly meetings from 2022. We want to wish everybody a very happy holiday season, and looking forward to 2023 in the new year with all of your involvement. So thank you, everyone. Have a happy holiday.